Shabbat Shalom. Just a moment for me to get ready. La 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Oh, say shalom bimromav. Uyahase shalom aleinu. ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל יושבי תבל, ועמו, Amen. Shabbat Shalom. I can see already many of you came online. Rabbi Janet, Shabbat Shalom to you. Philip, I can see you online as well. Rebecca, it's a shirt. I know I don't always wear flowery shirts, but for tonight I'm going to wear one. Deborah, Shabbat Shalom. Craig, Shabbat Shalom to you and to the family. And okay, so Rebecca, you've got both cats with you on the sofa. Good, 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 good. And I can see that Norman, Jill, and Joyce are here online tonight. Joyce, I knew that you can only hear my voice and can't see me because you have joined with the phone. So Shabbat Shalom to you in your home, and my heart and my prayers are with you and with you all. Right, Shabbat Shalom, Julie. So tonight is a slightly different Shabbat. I mean, it's Erev Shabbat, like all the Shabbatot in the year, but I was thinking because of what's happening in Israel and Palestine that we would try to do a Shabbat of song and healing for the situation in Zion and Jerusalem. And if you remember, when we were lucky to go to KLS, we used to sing a song of healing, Ana Elna Refa Nala, which is the prayer that Moses addressed to God when Miriam, his sister, was punished. And in the book of Numbers, we find this wonderful prayer, "Oh God, pray, heal her." And I will put it on my screen. The words are very easy to remember. Ana elna refanala. Ana elna refanala. Ana lai 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 lai. La 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Ana elna refanala. 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 And for Israel and Palestine, who are in dire need of healing, and for all of you who are in need of healing, and for all of those you know who are in need of healing. And I can see that Tina is here. I hope you're feeling better. Tina had a small accident today and she's online, and it's very good to see you here tonight. God of love, cast the light of health and well-being on the injured, the infirm, and the insecure. All will yearn for your healing hand. Bless them with healing of body, healing of soul, and healing of spirit. Grant all in need of full and complete recovery. And think about those you're holding in your heart, those who are in need of healing tonight. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, mekor hachaim. Blessed are you, eternal our God, source of life. And we will now light the Shabbat candles. If you haven't done so yet, please join me. Okay, everything is always ready, except when I need it. Right. Okay. Okay, good. Shamor vezachor bedibur echad. You shall remember and you shall observe the Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu להדליק נר של שבת. Amen. Shabbat Shalom. So I invite you tonight on a journey through the Psalms of Kabbalat Shabbat, and I will give you the pages, and I will also put them on the screen. So the first Psalm we're going to sing together is Psalm 95, verse 5. It's on page 70 in your prayer book, line 9, the 9th line of your prayer book on page 70. אשר לא הים והוא עשהו, ויבש את ידיו יצרו. The sea is God's. It is God who made it, whose power has shaped the land. אשר לא הים והוא עשהו, אשר לא הים והוא עשהו, ויבש את ידיו יצרו, ויבש את ידיו יצרו, אשר לא הים והוא עשהו, אשר לא הים והוא עשהו, ויבש את ידיו יצרו, ויבש את ידיו יצרו. Turn to page 71 for the first 4 lines of Psalm 96. And you remember what we've said is that Kabbalat Shabbat, the Psalms that are opening the Shabbat service, the Erev Shabbat service, are Psalms that talk about the creation of the earth that is what we celebrate on Shabbat. And I think for us tonight, when we're talking about healing for Israel and Palestine, it is always good to remember the larger picture, to remember that there's something greater, and to remember that we're here for something that has nothing to do with war, with conflict, but just here to understand who we are, to understand our mission, what we're here to do, what we're here to do in this world. And the state of mind that the psalmist is inviting us to embody is a state of mind of joy and of song. And we have this verse, Shirul Adonai Shir Chadash, sing to the eternal a new song, sing to the eternal all the earth, sing to the eternal, bless God's name, proclaim God's salvation day by day. שירו לאדוני, שירי חדש, שירו לאדוני, כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני, ברכו שמו, בשרו מיום ליום, Yeshuato, la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. שירו לאדוני, שיר חדש. שירו לאדוני, כל הארץ. שירו לאדוני, ברכו שמו, בשרו מיום ליום, ישועתו. שירו לאדוני, שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני, כל הארץ. Think about something tonight, this very old text. We don't know when the Psalms were written. They're attributed to King David, so 3,000 years ago. And King David tells us, Shirul Adonai, sing to the eternal Shir Chadash, a new song. Shirul Adonai, Kol Haaretz, sing to the eternal all the earth. So think about tonight, what is this new song that you are singing today? Because each and every day we are recreating our lives. Each and every day we are singing new songs, even if you're using the same words or the same melody or the same notes. Each and every day is a new song. And someday the song seems a bit difficult to come out of our being, and someday the new song just blasts like a trumpet. But every day, every single day, there's a new song. So today, think about what is this Shir Chadash for you. The next psalm I wanted to meditate on with you is Psalm 97. Psalm 97, verses 9 to 12. And again, it's a contemplation on Shabbat. Ki ata Adonai Elyon al kol haaretz, because you are the sovereign, supreme over all the earth. You are supreme beyond all gods. Those who love the eternal hate evil. God guards the souls of those who are faithful, saving them from the hands of the wicked. A harvest of light is sown for the righteous. A harvest of light is sown for the righteous. Rejoice in the eternal. Call God's holiness to mind with praise. And again, it's all about directing our mind towards the right, towards the light, and to try to find, even in the darkest moments, these little Shabbat candles that we may have in our soul somewhere, hidden sometime. Sometimes it's brighter. כי אתה אדוני עליון על כל הארץ, מאוד נעלת על כל אלוהים, כי אתה אדוני עליון על כל הארץ, מאוד נעלת על כל אלוהים, אוהבי אדוני צינוך. שומר נפשות חסידיו, מיד רשעים להציהם. אוהבי אדוני צינוך. שומר נפשות חסידיו, מיד רשעים יצליהם. אור זרוע לצדיק ולשכלף שמחה. אור זרוע לצדיק ולשכלף שמחה. אור זרוע לצדיק ולשכלף שמחה. ולשכלף שמחה. אור זרוע לצדיק ולשכלף שמחה. ולשכלף שמחה. שמחו צדיקים באדוני, והודו לזכר קודשו. Rejoice in the eternal, and call God's holiness to mind with praise. And the last psalm I wanted to meditate on with you tonight is Psalm 98, which you can find in your prayer books on page 81. On page 81, at the last paragraph of the psalm on page 81. הריעו לאדוני כל הארץ, פיצחו ורננו וזמרו. זמרו לאדוני בכינור, בכינור וכל זמרה. Shout for joy to the Eternal One, all the earth. Break forth, sing aloud. Oh gosh, I forgot. Sing praise with the harp and the sound of melody. Da 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 da. הריעו לאדוני כל הארץ, פיצחו ורננו וזמרו. הריעו לאדוני כל הארץ, פיצחו ורננו וזמרו. זמרו לאדוני בכינור, בכינור וכל זמרה. זמרו לאדוני בכינור, בכינור וכל זמרה. Lai 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 lai, yada lai 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 lai, yada lai lai, yada lai 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 lai, la la lai lai, yada lai 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 lai, yada lai lai, yada lai 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 lai. Zameru hariu לאדוני כל הארץ, פיצחו ורננו וזמרו. זמרו לאדוני בכינור, בכינור וכל זמרה. זמרו לאדוני בכינור, בכינור וכל זמרה. Lie, 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 lie. La 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 lie, 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 lie. Ya la lie, lie. Ya la la lie, la 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 lie, lie. Ya la lie, lie. La la lie, 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 lie. Ya la lie, lie. Ya la lie, 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 lie. A Prayer for Israel, May 2021, Rabbi Alexander Wright. Eternal God, shelter of peace for all nations, we turn to you at this time of conflict and danger for the state of Israel and all who live there. Protect all who are living under rocket fire and in the midst of riots and violence in the cities of Israel. As Shabbat begins tonight, we pray for a cessation of all hostilities, for the sake of those who are fearful and traumatized, for those who wish to live their lives in quietness and peace. In the shadow of death, we associate ourselves with those who are bereaved, families who have lost parents, children, partners, brothers and sisters. Strengthen them and console them with the warmth of your compassion and love. Bind up the wounds of those who have been hurt. Be with them in their pain and help them towards healing and recovery. We stand together with all those who cherish the vision of freedom, justice, and peace, who work for equality and understanding, and seek to remove enmity and hatred. Eternal God, we pray in the words of the prophet and Psalms, nation shall not lift up swords against nation, nor shall they learn war anymore. We pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May peace be found within her walls and safety within her borders. Vayigal kamayim mishpat, utzedakah kenachal etan. Let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. And let us say, Amen. So we turn now to page 86. For Deror Yikra, which is a Yemenite piyut that was written and the music composed by Jews from Yemen. Lai lai la la lai lai la 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 lai ya la 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 lai ya lai la la lai lai la 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 lai ya la 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 lai 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 דרור יקרא לבנים בת וינצורכם כמו בבת נהם שמכם ולא יושבת שבו ונוחו ביום שבת שבו ונוחו ביום שבת דראש נביא ועולמי ואות ישע עשה עמי נטע שורק בתור כרמי ששבת בני עמי ששבת בני עמי דרך חוכמה לנפשך והיא כתר לראשך נטע מצוות קדושך שמור שבת קודשך שמור שבת קודשך לי לי לה לה לי לי לה 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 לי יא לה 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 לי לה לי לה לה לי יא לה 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 לי יא לה 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 לי לי page 91 לך דודי. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. שמע וזכור בדיבור אחד השמיענו, אל המיוחד אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי בעורר, קומי אורי, 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 שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני, עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה, ובצהלה תוך אמונה עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. On page 92 for the Barechu. If you want to stand, please stand or remain seated as you wish. Barechu et Adonai HaMevorar. Baruch Adonai HaMevorar Leolam Vaed. We praise you, Eternal One, our God, sovereign of the universe, whose word brings on the evening, whose wisdom opens heaven's gates, whose understanding changes times and seasons, and whose will set the stars in the courses in the sky. You make day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light. You make day pass and bring on the night, and separate day from night. You rule the host of heaven. We praise your God, whose word makes everything fall. Unending love have you shown your people, the house of Israel. Torah, mitzvot, laws and precepts have you taught us. When we lie down and when we rise up, we reflect on the meaning of your laws and rejoice in the words of your Torah and in your mitzvot forever. On them we will meditate day and night, for they are our life and the length of our days. May your love never depart from us. We praise your God. You love your people Israel. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבביך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ובשורבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אמת. All this we hold to be true and sure. You alone, eternal one, are our God, and we are Israeli people. You have freed us from oppressors and delivered us from tyrants. You led us out of Egypt forever to serve you in freedom. When we witness your power, we praise your name and gave thanks. Willingly, we accepted your rule. Then, full of joy, we sang together. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלי, נורא תהילות אוסף אלי. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. We praise your God, Redeemer of Israel. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, ועמידנו מלכנו לחיים טובים. Grant, eternal God, that we may lie down in peace, and let us rise up to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your wise counsel, and for your name's sake be our help. Shield us from sickness and war, from famine and distress, and keep us from wrongdoing. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings, for you are our guardian and deliverer, a gracious and merciful God. Guard our going out and our coming in, that now and always we may have life and peace. We praise you, O God. May your sheltering peace descend on us and all who dwell on earth. Adonai sefatai tiftar, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'emotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Anora, El Elyon, Koneh Shamayim va'aretz. Magen avot ve'imaot bidvaro, מחיי מתים במאמרו, האל הקדוש שאין כמוהו, המניח לעמו ביום שבת קודשו, כי בם רצה להניח לכם לפניו נעבוד ביראה ובפחד, ונודה לשמו בכל יום תמיד, מעון הברכות אל ההודעות, אדון השלום, מקדש השבת, ומברך שביעי, ומניח בקדושה לעם מדושני עונג, זכר למעשה בראשית. And now inviting you to read on your own the English translation of Magen Avot ve'Imaot. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל בני האדם. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. So as I said in introduction, this Shabbat is a Shabbat of songs and prayers of healing for Israel and Palestine. And I wanted to talk to you about something I've attended last Thursday evening. I went online with our sister movement in Israel, the Israeli Movement for Progressive Judaism, which is IMPJ, that's the title, IMPJ, Israel Movement for Progressive Judaism. And we were about, I would say, 700 people from all over the world on the call to listen to our friends in Israel and to listen to what they had to say, also their worries and their understanding of the situation in Israel. And I thought that tonight I should bring it to you, bring it back to you, because I think it was very, very important. So you know that in Israel today there are about 50 progressive communities. They have a rabbinic seminary, the Hebrew Union College, which trains Israeli rabbis. And it's a very thriving movement. And one of the Reform rabbis in Israel, Gilad Kariv, is now a member of the Knesset, and he's elected under the banner of Avodah, of the Labour Party in Israel. So just to remind a bit ourselves, of course, there's nothing new. This happens quite often, that there are some conflicts in Israel, but there's something new this time, and I will explain what I mean by that. So there's literally a state of war now between Israel and the Hamas in Gaza, which started about a week ago, and there's also violence inside Israel, within the borders of Israel, between radicals on both sides. So you have radical Muslims and radical Jews who are fighting against each other, burning down mosques or synagogue, lynching people. So we had terrible stories on both sides. So there's almost a state of civil war, which doesn't involve the Palestinians from abroad, but the Palestinians from within, which is an immense cause of worry. So it started, remember, with some unrest at the Temple Mount at the end of Ramadan. So you have to imagine the Temple Mount, which is the third holy site for Islam, at the end of Ramadan is packed with people who come to pray to mark the end of the Ramadan. And because of some risks, of Israeli police probably not very wisely decided not to allow people to go up to the to the Temple Mount. And of course, this created a lot of unrest. And the situation degenerated very, very quickly. And underlying that, there was this issue that has been going on for decades in the village in Sheikh Jarrah in East Jerusalem. So there are threats of eviction of 13 Palestinian families who own houses in East Jerusalem. And I looked up a bit, why is this word Sheikh Jarrah in the news all the time? And actually what happens is these people, these families, are descendants of 1948 refugees that had given up their property in the western part of Jerusalem and were relocated in East Jerusalem in houses that belonged to Jews who left East Jerusalem as a consequence of the independence war. So there was a a swap of population, a shift of population. And of course, when Jerusalem was reunited after 1967, the question of these houses that belonged to Jews before the unification of the city. So this problem came up again, and it's been going on probably since the 70s. So every now and then you hear, threats. You have people who are going to the Supreme Court in Jerusalem asking them to evict these families, and they've been living there for 70 years now. So I mean, that's a bit of madness. Okay, I decided valid judgment, but I strongly believe that it's quite mad of the whole situation. So I took some notes for you, notes that I want to share tonight. So the first person to talk was Gilad Kariv, who used to be the CEO of the IMPJ, of Israeli Movement for Reform Judaism. After his election, when was it, a month ago, he resigned from his position of CEO and is now a member of the Knesset. So he said that there's a double crisis a current double crisis. The first is the military action against Hamas. And the second is the violence in mixed cities in Israel. There are cities in Israel where you have several communities living alongside each other. Jerusalem is one of them, Haifa, Akko, Lod near the airport, etc., etc. And Rabbi Gilad Kariv said we need to address or to try to understand both situations separately. So the question of the Hamas now first. So it's been a week now that the Hamas has launched a massive set of attacks on the southern cities of Israel. And there are thousands of rockets launched from the Gaza Strip into Israel. They have also fire balloons sent onto the field in the southern of the country. And what they've discovered is that Hamas has invested a lot of money in arms, in rockets, in order to match the level of the Hezbollah in Lebanon, because both groups are proxy of the Iranian regime, and they're in competition. Who is going to hurt Israel more? So this is a serious threat on Israel. And it was all started by the situation in East Jerusalem and the situation at Temple Mount. So according to Gilad Kariv, the strategy for the Hamas strategy is double. The first is to undermine the status of the Palestinian Authority. I remember that Gaza Strip is ruled by the Hamas, and the West Bank is ruled by the Palestinian Authority, by the PLO, and they disagree. So they are really enemies. And by doing that, the Hamas wants to undermine the Palestinian Authority from Ramallah. And the second element of the strategy is to drag Israeli Arabs into the conflict and weaken Israel from inside, which is a very dangerous strategy for Israel, because, whatever we believe, Jews and Arabs live alongside with each other, apart from moments where there are some tensions, but quite, they tolerate each other. And Israel, to be fair, does a lot for its minorities compared to other countries of the region. So there is a clear strategy from the Israeli government against Hamas on a military level, but according to Gilad Kariv, there is no vision or strategy of dealing with the situation on a political level, i.e. how to understand the relationship with the Arabs, whether the Hamas, the PLO, the Israeli Arabs. And there is no vision. The government has only a military answer. There is no diplomatic answers. And what he reminded us is it's the first time since 2002 that there's so much violence within the country between the communities in Israel. And what he also said is the violence on both sides. And you have ultra-nationalist Jews and Arabs who are attacking other communities. So in Bat Yam, near Tel Aviv, the synagogue was burned down. In the same city, an Arab was lynched. And this is 3 days ago, so it has changed again. So according to Gilad Kariv, there are three components of the current failure of the government and the Israeli society. And he had quite strong words. He said, first, you have the rise of these radicals in the country. There's also the failure of a kind of social network, the growth of poverty, and the lack of social support. And also what he said, which I found very interesting, is the fact that the past 2 years they had 4 elections, so there is no strong government, and then the whole system is pretty weakened. So what's not weak is the Israeli army, but it's really not enough to make this situation work. However, and that's the really positive outcome, not outcome, elements in the situation, more and more Israeli Jews and Arabs are working together, are having march in the streets, demanding the end of violence. And there is a very, what's the word? Ground movement, if you want, people from the street that come together and ask the governments on both sides to end the violence and to stop it. So we had 2 rabbis who came to talk to us about their daily situation, and I just wanted to mention one of my colleagues, Rabbi Yael Vurgan, who is the rabbi in Shahar HaNegev, which is in the south of the country. We're grassroots. Thank you, Meira. Thank you. Is America getting involved? I think they can't at that moment. I mean, it's too messy. They're trying to call for peace, but it's too violent at the moment. So yeah, Rabbi Vurgan in Sha'ar HaNegev is in a region that's called the Gaza envelope. That means all the parts of the country that is subject to the rockets. Basically, they live a mile away from the fence from the Gaza Strip. So what she talked about, without any judgment, she talked about the life situation in this part of Israel. So they don't sleep. They're woken up every 10, 15 minutes at night. The Israeli bombing from Israel to the Gaza Strips are very violent. And people in the kibbutz where she works are really shocked by the violence of the bombs. Sometimes they don't have electricity, the roads are closed, schools are closed, they have fire balloons on the fields, the farmers who live on the kibbutz have lost their livelihood. There's a lot of uncertainty. They can't do anything, they're always in the shelters. So when they hear the sirens, they have at best 2 minutes to find shelter somewhere. And of course, they won't celebrate Shavuot as they were planning. It's a harvest festival in Israel, and they won't be able to do anything. But there is a grassroots movement, thank you, Meira. There's a grassroots movement from within the civil society to ask for the end of it, because it's undermining the country from within, but it's also undermining the country with its neighbors. The fact that there's such an imbalance of power between Israel and the Hamas, and of course the population that suffers the most is the Palestinian population. But what they said, also one of the rabbis said that they felt that they were not heard outside Israel. Their suffering and their worries and anxiety was not heard by us here in the diaspora, that we are so much focused on the Palestinians that we forget what it means to live in Israel under such a terrible time. So this is the situation. Of course, there's not much we can do. I mean, we sent a letter to the ambassador asking, if it's kind of good wish letter. I don't know if this works at all. If you want to join tomorrow evening, there is a Havdalah organized by progressive rabbis here in the UK to talk about the situation. If you want to hear more, if you want to discuss it, it's on the Liberal Judaism website. So at 8 o'clock there's a study session, and 9 o'clock there's a Havdalah led by some rabbis. So it's worrying. Sadly, it's not something new. And, I'm always wondering, when there's such a difficult situation, when situations repeat themselves, what's the benefit? Huh? What's the benefit of staying in the same dynamic? Surely, if something is not right, we want to change it. And if nothing changed, of course, we can always blame the others, which is the easiest way to do it. You can blame the others for all the things that go wrong, but it doesn't change anything. And in the meantime, loads of people are dying in Gaza. People are dying in Israel. People are suffering and are anxious, are losing their properties, are losing their livelihood. And this must stop. So I don't know who has the courage in Israel and Palestine to stand up and say, okay, let's stop this madness, sit together and have this difficult conversation that is necessary more than ever. But of course, it's, as I said to my colleagues we have a mailing list, and I said, I'm just a middle-aged French rabbi working in the UK. Who cares about my views on the Middle Eastern situation? Thank you. Right. So before we continue, I'd like to give some announcements. So tomorrow morning at 11, we have a bar mitzvah. Our bar mitzvah seasons has started in March. So tomorrow it's Daniel Roberts. We will have a kiddush in the Kehila garden, and it's going to be really nice. It's on Zoom, it will be on Facebook, etc. So we have our classes, they're running during the week. Dominic Scholtes has now 3 beginners Hebrew classes. We have a Hebrew grammar class on Tuesday and Torah study lunch on Friday. So next week, yeah, so the event that I was mentioning to you at the moment, just now, it's called Elu ve'Elu, which is a passage in the Talmud, where they discuss the house of Shammai and the house of Hillel, who disagreed all the time. They represented really both sides of an argument. And the question why was Hillel always preferred over Shammai is because Hillel would always teach the opponent's views before his views. And I think I'm mixing 2 stories here. Gosh. Elu ve'elu divrei Elohim chaim. That's an expression you find in the Talmud. There's a controversy, and they disagree. And then there's a bat call, a heavenly voice that comes down from heaven and says, these words and these words are the words of a living God. Of course, some of the words may be better by listening to each other. So that's the basis. If you want to join, it's tomorrow at 8 p.m. So after Shabbat ends tomorrow on Sunday evening, we have the start of another festival, Shavuot, which starts Sunday evening with a service at 7:30, and we have a night-long study, which is in Hebrew, it's called Tikkun Leil Shavuot, which means, I think I mentioned it during my weekly message. It's a reparation of a night of Shavuot. It's a night of study because the rabbis believe that by studying Torah, we would participate in the reparation of the world. And there is a guest speaker. She's amazing, Judith Blasco. who is an American author, and she will come and talk about her book. And you have the whole program overview. So there's a Shavuot evening service, there's a first study session at 8:30, then there's at 9:45, the keynote speaker. So she wrote a book called Standing Again at Sinai. There's another study session at 10:30, there's rabbis at midnight, there's study session at 1 o'clock, there's early shacharit at 5 a.m. At 11 a.m., there's a Shavuot morning service with all the other LJ communities and with the Village Jewish Synagogue. So we have, I will be part of both services in the evening and in the morning. And the following week, we have, again, Hebrew, etc., etc. And next week, Friday evening, Erev Shabbat service led by Sandra Weber and Rebecca Weddell, and Shabbat service on Saturday morning led by Jill and Norman. So let me check, have I forgotten anything? Apparently no. So there's a lot of things going on, and I hope to see you on Shavuot. So of course this year we won't have a cheesecake, which is probably the highlights of Shavuot, but for reasons that are probably known to you, we can't do that. Right, so before we end our service, I wanted to read an Aleinu, alternative Aleinu, written by Rabbi Zalman Schachter Shalomi, who was a neo-Hasid, a rabbi who created the Jewish renewal movement in the United States, which is progressive and yet Hasidic in its roots. And he wrote many liturgical pieces, and one of them is called Aleinu. It is our duty. This is what he says. We rise to praise you, source of all, your generous work as creator of all. You made us one with all of life and help us to share with all of humanity. You linked our fate with all that lives and made our portion with all in the world. Some of us like to worship you as emptiness and void. Some of us want to worship you as sovereign of sovereigns. We all consider you sacred and blessed. We stand amazed at the vault of the sky, at the firmness of earth, and deem you enthroned in the highest realms, but also dwelling within us. You are our God, there is nothing else. Your truth is supreme. Existence is nothing but you. So your Torah guide us. And you shall know today and take it to heart that the eternal is your God, in heaven above and earth below. There is nothing else. God's sovereignty extends throughout the cosmos. God will indeed govern over all there is. On that day, God will be one, and her name will be one. Before we say the Kaddish, I'm just going to read aloud this week's outside. So on this Shabbat, we remember Cesario Medina Saeliches, the grandfather of Monse Medina, Abraham Solomons, the father of Mike Solomons, and Joseph Pfeiffer, the father of Michael Pfeiffer. Zichronam Livracha, may their memory be a blessing, and we read together the Kaddish, which is in your prayer book on page 524. 524. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברך חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהא שמי רבה מברך לעלם לעלמי עלמיה, יתברר וישתבר ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ביחתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהא שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל בני אדם, ואמרו אמן. Okay. And in order to finish our celebration, prayer feeling for Israel, I'm inviting you to join me with the Tikva, which is on page 374. As long as the Jewish heart still yearns and looks east to Zion, so long our hope has not yet perished. The hope of 2 millennia to be a free people in our land, the land of Zion in Jerusalem. כל בלבב פנימה, נפש יהודי הומיה, ולפתי מזרע קדימה, עין לציון צופיה. עוד לא אבדה תקוותנו, התקווה שנות 2000, להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, בארץ ציון בירושלים. להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, בארץ ציון בירושלים. Shabbat Shalom. And I'm going to invite you now to stay with me for a moment for the Kiddush, which you can find on page 563. And Shabbat is a time of blessing, is a time of mutual blessing. So I will say the blessing that has been taught by God to Aaron and the Kohanim, which is in the Torah. Yevarech Adonai v'shmerecha. May God bless you and keep you. Yaher Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. May God look kindly upon you and be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God reach out to you in tenderness and give you peace. Amen. Right, where is my... Oops. Oh, okay. Okay, page 564. יום השישי, ויחולו השמיים וארץ וכל צבאם, ויחל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה, וישבות ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה. ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו, כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר בכה אלוהים לעשות. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן, אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצה בנו, ושבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו, זיכרון למעשה בראשית, כי הוא ים תחילה למקרא קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת, אמן. לחיים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, המוציא לחם מן הארץ, אמן. Right. So please come tomorrow for Daniel's bar mitzvah. It's always a great moment for a community to be with someone who has worked so hard to present his thoughts and his what he's achieved during his learning. And I wish you all Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach for those who are also joining on Sunday evening, Chag Shavuot Sameach, and speak